Security forces in Kazakhstan say that they have killed dozens of protesters who stormed government buildings, and several police officers in the country's biggest city, Almaty, were also killed in the worst unrest seen in the country in 30 years. Kazakhstan's president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, appealed to Russia for help, and a Moscow-led alliance is now sending in peacekeeping troops. Soaring fuel prices sparked the protests, which are now in their fifth day. The European Union and the U.S. are calling for restraint.
Kazakhstan is facing its biggest political crisis since its split from the Soviet Union. What began as protests over the price of fuel has grown into a nationwide uprising against inequality and corruption. Reports say dozens of protesters and police have been killed in violent clashes. The president has called for help from the Collective Security Treaty Organization of 6 former Soviet nations. Moscow says the troops have been deployed on a peacekeeping mission to help the authorities regain control. Once seen as Central Asia's most stable nation, unrest in Kazakhstan poses a challenge for their northern neighbours.
What happened in Afghanistan with the somewhat irresponsible behaviour of NATO forces and the sudden decision by the US to withdraw its forces from Afghanistan, that has made the unstable situation in Kazakhstan a serious threat for Russia. Russia shares a 7,000-kilometre border with Kazakhstan, and that border is not especially protected.
President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev was the chosen successor to autocrat Nursultan Nazarbayev just 2 years ago. He's blamed the demonstrations on so-called terrorist gangs. But the protesters are numbered in the tens of thousands, and many are calling for drastic change to unseat the autocratic dynasty that's controlled the resource-rich country since independence. Others feel caught up in the chaos. We want to tell the whole world that the only thing flourishing in Kazakhstan is corruption. Kazakhstan has become a private enterprise of the Nazarbayev family. All strategically important sites in Kazakhstan belong to the Nazarbayev family. I never knew that our people could be so terrifying. It was very scary to be out in the streets. Even more, we couldn't sleep at night because we were afraid. Some are worried that the protests could lead to an even harsher version of authoritarianism, as officials clamp down on freedoms to quell the violence.
Well, journalist Bruce Pannier is a Central Asia specialist. He is following the story for us. He joins us tonight from Prague. Bruce, it's good to see you again. It's difficult to get information about what is happening right now on the ground in Kazakhstan. I mean, what are you hearing?
You are right. It's difficult to get information. There still seems to be some protests going on in the West. However, the security operation that the Kazakh authorities launched last night is continuing in Almaty. We're still getting reports that people are being shot. The number of police that were reported dead or security forces are now up to 18. It was 8 this morning. We don't have a clear figure for civilian casualties. They've also labeled one of the provinces further to the west, Kyzyl-Orda province, as a red alert zone for terrorism at the moment. It was unclear why they decided that place and why not the 2 provinces in between it. But it's clear that there's still security operations going on in many parts of the country, even though, like I said, there's still protests going on in the west and the north, where people are still occupying town squares right outside the administrative buildings.
And this, we're told, started with protests against skyrocketing fuel prices, but it's become a demonstration that's much more than just fuel prices, isn't it?
Yeah, it did. And you on the clip that you had earlier, one of the speakers alluded to the fact that it's become a corrupt country when the Nazarbayev family owns everything. I mean, this is just one of the complaints that people have had for a long time, that they have low wages, that they don't get proper social benefits, a number of things. And so the protest over the hike in fuel prices was really just kind of a catalyst for everyone to release all the complaints and concerns that they've had for years and years. Remembering that, of course, they've been under lockdown like a lot of countries around the world. So this has been pent up for months now.
And we've heard that Russia is sending in peacekeepers in a Russian-led military alliance. Now, they're being called peacekeepers, but the truth here is that Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, he does not need another former Soviet republic, this one being Kazakhstan, to become a trouble spot for him. He already has enough on his hands with Ukraine and Belarus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, earlier in your report, you mentioned that they have a 7,000-kilometer long border, which really is pretty open and has been historically. So this presents a huge problem to his country if Kazakhstan suffers some instability. The ripple effects could be bad for Russia too. Russia has a lot of investments in Kazakhstan. They've been close allies for 30 years. I'm sure that the Kremlin does not want to see the leadership that they've become accustomed to fall and have to deal with an unknown.
Journalist Bruce Penny with the latest on events in Kazakhstan for us. Bruce, thank you.
Thank you.